Hello all and welcome to Coolest Gamer's review of Stranger Things 2. Also known as the PS4 is the most inconsistent piece of recording equipment ever because it won't allow me to simply record footage while I'm fucking looking at an image on an internet browser or on Netflix or anything like that. If it's not in-game, it's not admissible. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. Maybe you guys will have better recommendations for me. But anyway, let's get right into it. This is not going to be an altogether positive review, and I'm sure that's going to trigger a lot of people. Well, actually, no, you guys don't care about my opinion. You've never heard of me, so why would it trigger you? But I'm waiting for it anyway. Let's get right into it. First of all, I'd like to say that this show is good. Now, hold on. That doesn't mean that I like it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In order for me to like something, it has to either grab me by the ball hairs in terms of what I'm into, or it has to be excellent or some combination of both. I'm not a fan of 80s camp, and I don't think that this show really brings anything fresh or original to the table of anything that I've seen. It's not something that will stand out in my mind that will be memorable in years to come, at least not in these first two seasons. Does that mean that it's bad? Absolutely not. No. I mean, a show can be good and still lack a compelling quality. It's what makes a show great that this show is lacking in. And that's the main thrust of this review. So let's get into the main points. Now, first, let's talk about what's new to this show in this season. Namely, Max and her older brother, whose name I literally did not care to learn. Let's just call him Assfuck from this point onwards, because that's what I preferred to call him in my notes. So Max is this young redhead girl who moved to town from California. She's unfeminine, she skateboards, and she plays a mean dig dug. Is she interesting? I mean, jury's kind of out on that one. She's obviously in the season to receive minimal character development, and maximum we're saving this one for season 3 function, but so be it. I mean, she's likable enough. She plays her role in kind of just this blasé, like, I'm here, but I'm not offensive kind of way. So I guess she's fine. As for the older brother, fuck him. Seriously, that's why his name is Assfuck. Because that character is pure cancer. He's the bad seed, the long-haired pretty boy with the mean temper. Think of Judd Nelson from The Breakfast Club. Except this isn't 1985, and this isn't the first time we've seen this character type. He wants to be, I don't know, king of the high school at Hawkins, whatever the fuck that means. And he soon, early in the season, singles out Steve as like his quote-unquote rival, who he has kind of like a rapport with. Seriously, in the first scene that I saw them together, they end up taking a shower in the locker room together after they play basketball. And I really thought that they were setting it up like, okay, this pretty boy is a closet homosexual because he's complimenting Steve's good looks, and then he like slaps him in the ass or something. It was like one of those scenes where I'm like, okay, so Steve and Nance are not meant to be together. And Steve and Assfuck are meant to be together. I mean, that's okay, cool. That's representative. I can get behind that. That's fine. No, it was literally just the cliche of the assfuckers, the jock characters. By the way, if you've gotten this far in the video, don't go any further if you don't want to be spoiled, because I'm gonna spoil whatever I considered relevant to spoil in this review, which is quite a lot, actually. So you have this Macho Man subplot with Steve and with Assfuck, who also serves as the Deus Ex Holica to the gang's every move this season. He's basically that convenient obstacle, like nothing can be too smooth for these kids. You have to have someone trying to stand in their way, and he serves that purpose. At the end of Season 2, we learn that his father is this abusive, authoritarian type, very, again, Judd Nelson's dad in Breakfast Club. and his stepmom is this saintly character, the biological mother of Max. But she's also the saintly type of wife who not only doesn't seem to mind that she's married to a psychopath, but also doesn't even attempt to intervene in his abuse of Assfuck. So when Assfuck borderline beats his sister and turns Steve into a bloody pulp in the final episode, we just figure it's all in good. Oh, look at the damaged young soul fun. But I did not see it that way. I was thoroughly annoyed and disturbed by this character, and I felt that although he was incredibly well acted, there was really very, very little point in having him in this season other than to serve as obstacle for the other characters. Now, yeah, I'm sure he's going to receive more development in season 3, just like Max. I mean, they're setting these characters up as like sleeper cells who are going to become big hits in season 3, I'm sure. But it's just not entertaining or compelling this season. And if a show doesn't make a character intriguing to you in that sleeper cell phase, then I don't see the point of even pursuing their storylines further. And that's a lot of what this season suffers from. Although the intrigue was high in season 1, it seems in season 2 we get a lot of retread and we get a lot of self-indulgence that makes me not want to watch it a third time around. I was already dragging myself through the motions of even starting this season, and it doesn't even have the grace to get off to a good start. Now, later in the season, it does get exciting, but as far as expecting people to like it in the first few episodes and then stick with it and watch the second half, I don't think it's a valid excuse to say, oh, it just takes time to get good. You know what I mean? So you have these forgettable character introductions in this season that really just don't pan out. And as far as, now that we've gotten the newness of this season out of the way, let's move on to other things that the show might be innovative with. Oh my. It doesn't seem like anything, that is new in this season. Now, for those naysayers who will pipe up immediately to say, oh, Coolest Gamer, this time the big time enemy is a giant hive mind stretching across the town, and this time we got 8, the magical Indian girl, and this time Mike and 11 finally got to be together, and this time Dusty was a minorly redeemable character. Stop. That's enough out of you. Nothing has changed. Steve is still a boring jock at heart. Jonathan draws Nance into an unlikely relationship based on the fact that they seek out justice for Barbara together. The gang, including Mike, Dusty, Lucas, and Will, all remain unremarkable young boys who are caught up in something bigger than themselves. Hopper is still the law who's out of his element. 11 somehow gains humanity from being locked up in a shack with Hopper for almost a year, and I don't give a damn about any of it. This show seems to think that because it's a pastiche of E.T. and John Hughes movies and general campy drivel that it will charm the pants off of everyone. And apparently I'm an alien creature or something because I'm not everyone. Again, I'm not saying the show is bad, but is it good enough to warrant upwards of a 9 out of 10 from seemingly everyone who sees it? No. No. Stranger Things 1 was by all means the better season. It was full of intrigue and terror. It was kind of the spiritual cousin to Twin Peaks with its sense of tragedy and dark mystery. And, I mean, it did hook you. It managed to get you intrigued in the concept of the show. Did it fully execute on its premise in such a way that I walked away saying, wow, like that was unforgettable. That seriously changed the way that I look at this 80s nostalgia romp stuff? No, I don't think so. But compared to this season, it was an absolute masterpiece. This season kind of comes across like a Call of Duty sequel. It's chock full of action, and it has no brains. It's as if the Duffer Brothers were so smitten with their success over the first season that they just figured, let's make it more high octane this time around and screw everything else. It's pared down, amped up, and full of nonsense. Literally. And yes, I mean literally the way everyone means literally nowadays. To the show's credit, it gets a lot right. I wouldn't be getting it a better than 5 score if it didn't, quite obviously. And for how tired I am of the show already, I can't say that it doesn't have potential. I mean, I did watch it up to this point. I have seen every episode. So the fact that I'm even concerned enough to review it shows that I think that there might be something there that they're working towards. And plenty about this season gets things right. The casting of Finn Wolfhard, Noah Schnapp, Paul Reiser, David Harbour, Millie Bobby Brown, Sean Astin, and even Cara Buono and Decray Montgomery, who plays the ever-despised assfuck, are all inspired choices, and these actors carry out their roles with panache. The atmosphere of the show, as well, is incredibly well done. The set design, the lighting, the 80s nostalgia, all that is carried off in a convincing way, and in themselves, those are non-self-indulgent elements of the show. You know, you don't get the sense that they're patting themselves on the back. You really do get a sense that there is a passion for these elements that they put into the show. The music is tight. I mean, the music is the shit. The music kind of makes the show. Like, I would absolutely love to own soundtracks of both seasons because it's good. It sets the atmosphere. It does things right. There are some montages in this season that are absolutely fantastic. There's a scene towards the end where Cara Buono and Decray Montgomery kind of have this like flirty, sparky scene together where they're just sort of like eyeballing each other, and this cheesy 80s love ballad is playing in the background. I mean, it's well done in all of those elements. All of those elements are excellently done. But the things that I think really carry the heart of any show, such as character development, plot, pacing, themes, and a general sense of having a genre, all fall short here. Um, like the also far overappreciated spin-off of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, this show can't seem to make up its mind on what it is, and instead it subjects us to these hour-long episodes of meandering nonsense. The sense of pedestrianness, the inability of the show to feel important, is also very problematic. And if we're on the topic of representation, rest assured that there is none. Yes, are minorities even more minor in the 80s? Sure, I guess that's what they were going for, but was this show shot in the 2010s? You bet your ass it was. Yet we literally have one person of color in this show. Fucking one who is an important character. And no, Max's vague Irish background doesn't count as red. In an early episode, we see a black family trying to buy pumpkins for Halloween, and their son shoots at Hopper with a toy gun, but he's dressed like a fucking cowboy. Then there's this idiot side character black cop from the first season, who is literally shown for all of 15 minutes this season, and then he and his cohort are dropped like hot potatoes, like hot poisoned pumpkins. And for all the good performances, there are just as many that are unremarkable or just plain bad. I'm looking at you, Winona Ryder, Gaten Matarazzo, Charlie Heaton, Natalia Dyer, and I'm sad to say it, Brett Gelman. Murray was this character played by Brett Gelman who we barely needed. He was basically carried out as the paranoid creep conspiracy theorist in a really unbelievable and cheesy way that I think went even further than the camp the show is trying to get across. It was this pained performance where it was like he was so obviously trying to fit this role, and it wasn't convincing. I mean, we literally have a scene where he doesn't know his purpose to such an extent that he spends a great deal of effort trying to force this uncharismatic Nance Jonathan couple together in his guest bedroom. I mean, it was bizarre. I think that he was an off-putting character that just felt phony and trite and overdone. I mean, I loved him in Judd Apatow's Love, but in this he doesn't seem to have a sense of belonging, and it really shows. Oh, did I say only one person of color was important? I must have forgotten about 8, played satisfyingly enough by Linnea Berthelsen. Uh, she plays this vaguely Indian character with the ability to make other people see the things she wants them to see. And why did I forget about her? Oh yeah, it's probably because her story is edgy garbage. I mean, basically she's formed this rejects club branch of the Assassin's Creed. Her purpose with her lab race powers is to take revenge on all those who cast us out from society. So her and a bunch of these burnouts basically live in a warehouse in Chicago, and they're all trying to get revenge on people who wronged them in life. I mean, moralistically, it's really, really bankrupt. But is it good? I mean, I love myself a good revenge plot. I wouldn't still be playing Assassin's Creed Origins if I didn't, because that kind of stuff is gratuitous and it's satisfying, but I got the sense that that's all that they were really going for with this subplot, was they wanted you to get this gratuitous, satisfying payoff, and then in the end they were just going to be like, oh, but that's not right, so, we can't possibly espouse that as a value. Around the two-thirds mark of the show, 8 takes 11 into her company of bad people, and they end up killing the guy who turned the amperage up on 11's mom's electroshock thing that made her crazy. And oh, they don't kill him because 11 grows a heart, and then they leave him behind. And 11 parts ways with 8, and stick around for season 3, guys. 8's gonna come around and not be such an edgy moron, and she'll somehow, want to have to do with the events at Hawkins for some reason. I think it's some sisterly link with 11 or something. I don't know. It's not set up very extensively. It's not very believable, and I've read reviews that have said that 8's contribution to this season was the weakest point. And I would agree if I didn't find that point to be indistinguishable from all the weak points that were in this season. I mean, I'm okay with characters not gaining their prominence until a season after they're introduced. I really am. I think that's fine. But you have to wonder how a show feels entitled to do something like that when they spend absolutely zero time further developing the characters that they brought into our lives in season 1. And I think this resounds throughout the show. The characters that you've come to know and love from season 1 are given almost zero development time. The gang is going through the motions. 11 kind of gains a personality. She's starting to integrate into human society. And I think she's like the shining light. I think 11 really, really knocks it out of the park this time around. And there is a commendable performance done by Jim Hopper, who plays this tormented police officer who lost his daughter, and he's trying to replace her with 11. He's trying to be a caretaker again. He's trying to get that sense of responsibility and purpose back in his life. And both of those performances are done very well, and I thought that the Hopper-11 dynamic was the most dysfunctional, charming, and original aspect of this entire season. It was unfortunately dropped about halfway through so that they could go their separate ways, and I wish that they had shown some more of that. But that is one aspect of a lead-in into Season 3, that relationship between Hopper and 11, that I'm actually interested to see play out in Season 3. That's something that I want to continue to see. And also the relationship between 11 and Mike is powerfully done. It's very believable, and I'm rooting for them. I really am. I think that they are a very touching young preteen couple who have very believable reasons for loving each other. The same cannot really be said for the Jonathan and Nance relationship, nor for the Lucas and Max relationship that arise in the show. There really is nothing drawing those characters together, but the show just has them smile goofily at each other, and, people go along with it. So, let's move on. Let's talk about the monster in this show. The big old, viney Dark Lord taking over Hawkins. I mean, there's nothing really notable to be said for the heroes this time around, besides their human elements in a few of them. So let's just get right into the villain. So if you are wondering about the heroes, just picture gasoline and magical powers, and that's basically what saves the day. I mean, it goes through the motions in such a way that you won't even remember really the plot when you walk away from this show, from this season, because I mean, who gives a shit really? Who gives a shit how they win? It's nothing inventive. It's all just actiony. It's all just bland. Now, for the monster, he's well rendered. He's vaguely phallic. He's kind of Lovecraftian, and he doesn't have a face. And he produces an infinite number of these fucked up plant-ass looking dogs, and spreads his vines, which are also tunnels, all over the township of Hawkins. I'd like to say that this was a compelling villain because it is so imposing. It does have such a huge physical presence in the show, and you really do get a sense of the danger that it poses. But it has really no personality this time around. And yes, I mean, it does possess Will Byers and turns him into this, like, this underworld secret agent thing who's, like, his eyes and ears. And it hates heat, and it's a hive mind for all the dog things, but I mean, that sense of, like, horror that you got from the Demogorgon in the first season is lost here because you're just dealing with these dog minion things, which are so, you know, so much in Legion that you don't really care about them or think that they're particularly compelling. And the Vine Lord itself, I mean, it has a few scenes where it looms over Will, or when it looms over the school at the end, but it really has no personality, and it really doesn't make its intentions other than to just kill every living thing known. I mean, if it's a deeper villain, maybe we'll find out, but we definitely didn't get any sense of that this season, and it was just this kind of big, scary monster. So, a brief aside about these demo dogs that they've introduced this season that are kind of the centerpiece of the action. This might seem unrelated. Does anyone else want Dusty to die? I feel like everything that he does in this show is idiotic. It hinders the rest of the group. And he's not a particularly good actor, and his character is like that obnoxious ass of the group that nobody particularly likes, but he's just there. Except that he doesn't endear himself to anyone. At least, he doesn't endear himself to me. I mean, it seems like he only has one facial expression, which is like stupid, clueless grin, and, you know, it's just fixed all the time. And he's just obnoxious, and every moment that he's on screen, I want him to go away. He's just like Assfuck. I don't want to see him. I don't ever want to see him. And he just ruins everything that he touches. And they give him this redemption towards the end of the season where the gang is lighting some nerve center of the hive minds thing with gasoline so that they can distract the demo dogs from the hospital where 11 is trying to close the portal so that the demo dogs can't get out into the real world. And all the demo dogs start running towards the gang down the vine system or whatever. And one of the demo dogs that Dusty saved when it was like a fetus in his trash can, that he names D'Artagnan after Three Musketeers candy bars, because who fucking likes those? Comes up and confronts the gang, and he's like, "Oh, it's you, D'Artagnan. Oh my goodness, look at you. You're there. I raised you, and it's you. hold on guys, I got this. And he basically, like, consoles the demo dog with a Three Musketeers bar, and then they all get by. And it's supposed to be one of those moments like, wow, Dusty fucking everything up for everyone by keeping a demo dog really turned out well in the end, because he got to save the group. But the whole time I'm just wondering, where the fuck are the rest of the demo dogs that ran in with it? This doesn't even make sense. It was one of those forced saccharine moments that literally serve no purpose but to give a minorly redemptive value to a character who is otherwise just cancer. So it's moments like that where they're trying to be touching, when they're trying to establish like this meme value to their show, that really, really make me hate it. Where it's just self-indulgent and yeah, what else is there to say? I mean, you have this show that jerks itself off at every opportunity, and it hasn't even established that much of a precedent that it can even do so. And then you have the anti-heroes. This is better. The group of scientists that are trying to contain the spread of the upside-down virus are headed by the ever-capable and morally ambivalent Paul Reiser. He's great. Just great. I mean, even when he turns good in the end, his shiftiness was so convincing in the start of the season that I'm still left wondering about his intentions. And his scientist brood embody like the best example of campiness in this season, acting morally aloof and doing ridiculous looking shit with radars and test tubes. That was a high point of the show. Seeing them on screen was interesting because you had this human villain which wasn't just embodied in one person like it was with Dr. Brenner. You have this interesting anti-hero who's sort of just spread out amongst these various individuals who are trying to do the best that they can for the city of Hawkins, and they do what they think is right, but it's also a very selfish and very morally ambivalent angle that they take. I think I said morally ambivalent twice, but that's alright. So, where does that leave us? The ending. The terrible fucking ending. The gang wins, Eleven's death is foreshadowed, but it's not delivered upon. She's fine, of course. Everyone's fine, and they all go to a winter dance, and relationships are secured. Even though Will was treated like a freak and no one knows what he went through this season, his freakish reputation is turned randomly into a good one when this quirky girl asks quote-unquote zombie boy to dance. And you have this overly long, overly saccharine denouement that has absolutely no weight. You're like, oh, everything's great, everything's great, wow, everyone's happy, it's a happy ending, let's see the outro where something bad happens, and you're just waiting for that the whole scene. And nothing about this resolution seemed to really have any ties to the plot that came before it, as if it really was resolving all of these problems. It just seemed like you had this underdeveloped plot, and the ending just gave you this gratuity that didn't even deliver on the promises of the show that came up to it, if that makes any sense. It's like the ending had nothing to do with the plot, and the plot had nothing really to do with anything. I mean, the main takeaway from the show is that it's just forgettable. So, let's see, what do I have here? Yeah, the season brought up a forgettable crisis and then solved it, and gave it no time to mature. And then you get the outro. The tentacle monster survived. The gate was closed. Apparently the tentacle monster managed to survive, and in the upside down world version of the school, it's looming over. It's not dead. It's gonna get him next season. I mean, at this point, I don't even watch the show for the plot anymore. It's like that summer action / horror movie that you get momentarily excited to see. You go and see it, and then it's forgettable, and in a month's time, you're like, what movie? So, in conclusion, don't get me wrong, the show is good. I know, despite everything I said now, which just seems to be scathing, objectively, literally, it's a good show. But does it find its way into your hearts? I don't think so. I think that the show tries desperately to play along these nostalgic lines, and it tries to establish this Goonies-like sentimentality in the hearts of the viewers, but it fails to develop any distinct identity of its own. It just feels as if they have all of these really commendable elements that they put together to make this show, but the execution is totally uninspired and cliche. I mean, you walk away saying, huh, okay, then that was a show. If you're being honest, if you're being like a lot of the fans, I think that, you know, it's the best thing that you could find on Netflix originals. And so you feel, what dare I say, a false sense of enthusiasm over something that is, at the end of the day, barely better than mediocre. Dishonorable discharges from the show, as far as I'm concerned, should be Joyce Byers and Dustin Henderson. Winona Ryder seems capable of only 2 facial expressions, which are deer in the headlights and tensely happy. She often exaggerates her anger and fear to cringe-worthy levels. And Gaten Matarazzo literally relies on his voice alone to be compelling, and it's just annoying, to such a degree that the irony and goofiness of his character is completely lost to me as I try not to put my hand through a wall every time he speaks. His face is completely inexpressive, his smile is made out of Gouda cheese. Rip. At the rate this show is going, I think it's headed for a downturn. The attention to character and plot are incredibly diminished this time around, and it feels familiar, not in a nostalgic way, but in a wow, this is really like an uninspired rerun of the first season kind of way. And although it's always had this potential to be a powerhouse in the Netflix arena, I think that's diminishing quickly. The self-indulgence of the plot, its predictability, its clichédness, this awful, awful denouement, which is essentially just this giant ad for season 3, where it's like, yeah, you don't have to be invested now, just give us another season, and we promise the action will be even bigger. It'll be even more AAA. It'll just really grab your attention. It'll really just make you like saturated with violence. The show is headed in the way of the dodo, as far as I'm concerned. It's not inventive, and it is quickly losing any originality that it once clung to. I think that in season 1, the show started off as a 7, and now it's firmly a 6. And that's about all I have to say about that. So, watch as I slide down this great pyramid, demonstrating the direction that Stranger Things 2 is headed in. It's headed down, 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 down. And someone just auto-assassinated by this point. Thanks for watching.